Alison Tavera Fortuna and I volunteer at Barangay Bagong Pag-asa in Quezon City. So I would describe Barangay Bagong Pag-asa as a very collaborative community. They have different committees, so they have a health center, a daycare center, and they recently just opened a children's park, so it's open to the public. Anyone can go. There's a playground and there's places to sit. So I think it's something that's open to everyone, which I really like because it encourages people to go out and to communicate with the other fellow community. So what I do in terms of volunteering for the center is I painted murals for the children's park. So I gathered people to help me out and I painted the walls of the playground. So I started volunteering at Barangay Bagong Pag-asa last year, August. So when the children's park really opened, like I mentioned, I gathered people to help me paint the walls. And now from then on, I usually go to the barangay to monitor the cleanliness and to make sure that everything's going well. If something needs to be repainted, I paint it again. I grab people who want to volunteer for repainting it, and yeah, that's what I do. I chose to become a volunteer. Well, first of all, I feel like I did because I think growing up, I was raised with the value of service being centered with who I am, which roots from my dad always being a volunteer in terms of him being a kagawad at Barangay Bagong Pag-asa, which inspired me to kind of expose myself and connect with other people. And that's why I continue what I do, because I feel like the exposure and the collaboration you have with your fellow community and other people in terms of serving them and helping out to evolve a community really helps you grow as a person. And so I consider that as one of the values I have for my own character and my own personality, is to always be open and to share what you have and abilities you have with the community you grew up in. Because volunteering comes with the purpose of helping others out. And I believe with the community you have growing up, like in my barangay, they help clean your area or they do projects to evolve where you live in. And I wanted to contribute with that because I can, and it's important to have that attribute, in my opinion. I think that translates with a lot of things I volunteer for, like having my own advocacy or being a leader in my own terms, because I want to contribute and help other people out in my own ways. And I think it's really important to acknowledge the community you grew up in and just generally give back as a thank you and to show the gratitude of how much it's done for you. I think I continue pursuing my volunteerism is because simply I enjoy it. I like seeing people be happy because of the help that I've contributed. I think like what I mentioned, I've always valued service within me, and I feel like a person's character and personality and growth really revolves around their beliefs. And I believe that giving back is something that you should eventually learn to do, because it helps you a lot with, let's say, for me, it really gives me a strong sense of communication skills. Collaborating with community is something you'll want to carry on, per se, for me after I graduate college in the workspace. And it also revolves around the kindness and how much you want to share a piece of yourself out there, which is something I like to practice because it makes me more grounded as a person, and it teaches me a lot of values that I feel like I can branch and inspire to other people. And something that I would want to give some advice I would want to give students in terms of volunteering or helping out with communities is simply just do it. You know, when I was in high school, one of the most prominent experiences and memories I had was doing my research paper, which is something you're required to have when you graduate high school. And I think that was one of the ways I was moved to really think of what advocacy I believed in, think on what I want to pursue and what I want to do. So I really narrowed my thesis during the time to helping out other people. So yeah, in your own little ways, let's say you're still in school since you're a student, think of how you can narrow your work and craft with what you believe in, because I feel like that's where you thrive and that's where you will grow from if you are grounded and aware enough to understand the impact you have and where you want to put your abilities and strengths as a student. So yeah, I think my thesis was something very important to me. It's something I continued on in my university life because I have an advocacy movement that I work on, which stems a lot from believing in the advocacy that I worked on in high school. And when I'm in college and I have spare time, I like to help out in Barangay Bagong Pag-asa. And I think I have a foot in that community because my dad is part. So that's kind of a privilege I have. And also, it translates a lot when I work because I'm a working student. So I'm in uni, but I also do part-time work. It's because I just really love doing service. I even work as a sales associate. So I guess it also translates in that sense. But basically, for students who are aspiring to be volunteers, I feel like you should just do it. My most favorite volunteer work that I've done would probably be me visiting a center in Muntinlupa. And this was a temporary housing under the SWD called Marilac Hills. And it housed girls from age 7 to 17. And it's kind of like an orphanage. And these girls are people who are victims of, violence against women in their own homes. And it was such a heartwarming experience to visit because I really took my time out of what I was doing that week to meet these girls and to meet the people who handle this shelter. And I was able to learn more about the statistics of how much abusers were in these girls' homes, which really made me sad, but it also made me realize so much of the problems that we don't even know about in our country. So it was an eye-opening experience, and it's something that strengthened my advocacy work and movement for my own personal thing. And I think this is the most remarkable and my own personal favorite because it really made me see through the girls, because it's always easy to read posts like these on Facebook, violence against women, Women's Month. But when you're there face to face, you get to feel, the sadness and kind of like the struggle that this center goes through with sheltering girls, because there are like 140 girls in that center. And they do their best to fulfill their needs in terms of giving them education or giving them certifications for when they're out of the center and able to work. So I'm glad that there are efforts being put to this cause. But sometimes it's just not enough. Like for example, they don't have enough means to get psychological help, which I feel is very important. We only have, if I'm not mistaken, 200 registered psychologists in our country, and we are a lot. So I feel like we're not able to account to that problem, and we only are able to fulfill a temporary solution. And for another point is they don't have enough hygiene needs, napkins or soap or shampoo, and these are already basic necessities. And for a government-held center being the main people in charge, it's a bit concerning. So I think this is one of the most remarkable, favorite in the sense where it just meant a lot to me. So yeah, that would be my most favorable volunteer experience. So I feel like what I learned from volunteering in my own terms and my own personal experiences is just to continue it. I think the involvement someone has with the community really can teach them a lot of things. And the reason why I keep going with so much passion is, for one, the shirt I'm wearing. So the movement that I created revolves around violence against women here in the Philippines, because I feel like it is, like what I mentioned in the past question, a problem that we don't really focus on. A lot of things are going on, but this is human rights. So I feel like we should shed a little more light, or a lot more light actually, to this problem. And I think it's just translated so much in what I do and why I do what I do. It's because, for one, I'm an artist. So I'm a traditional artist. It's always been who I am, and it's always been part of my identity. And through the talent I was given, I try to incorporate that with my advocacy and with my beliefs. So when I was making this movement, I made my own logo. I made it very centered to femininity and the power of women. And I continue to do that because I'm a woman myself. I live with a lot of women, and I believe that they should have justice, and we should continue to do what we do, because if not, then who will? If the government held communities are lacking, then that means we have to be more involved and present and aware of these consequences and the problems that are happening in these kind of landscapes. And yeah, I think it's just important to always be aware, always know your research, know the statistics, um, be present on the recent happenings, and just to read more and to speak more about it, because the reason why I do this movement is not just to change things overnight, but to spark more conversations and to bring more awareness to the problem, because I feel like nobody's really doing that. So
Bottom line is, I feel like we should always feel inspired by the people that surround us. I think we can start with the communities we grew up in, because there are always people involved with helping out, like the barangay. So I think being involved is very important. Being aware and being open-minded enough to learn more about the situations, and even the most uncomfortable ones, is very important, because that's how we will learn how to contribute and to make more solutions to fill the problem.
And what I can say with what I've experienced is we really, truly cannot change things overnight. But what we can do is to help in our own little ways and abilities, to spark more conversations, and to share the awareness as much as possible. And that's all.
Thank you so much for having me.